I probably really should have listened to the instruction. Anyways, I didn't do that. There are definitely no signs of it being summer in the background behind me. Shh. Don't tell anyone that I procrastinated editing this video and may have had to re-record this section because it didn't turn out. Hey friends, I am trying band weaving for the first time. And to make my life more interesting, I'm going to do it on my rigid heddle loom here because I don't own an eagle loom. And I don't really have the time now to order a special nifty band loom weaving heddle. I couldn't find a source local to me, and it would take too long to get here. So we're going to see how we can adapt instructions to using my Ashford 16-inch rigid heddle loom that I already own. This is, of course, a lot wider than this kind of heddle, so we might come across some interesting challenges. We shall see how that goes. I couldn't find any video example of someone weaving on a band with a rigid heddle loom, which is partly why I decided to buy a book that had written instructions so my brain could think through the steps better and see what I need to do, because there are some great videos that I came across and even like written tutorials, but my brain just processes new concepts better with reading a book. So I bought one. So I guess the next step is to go warp this beast. We're almost to the end. I think there's one more round of paper. So getting close, which is good because this is Wednesday. I need to have it finished really by Friday. Saturday is the big day. So I'll bring you in closer so I can share a few things that I figured out along the way to make this whole process easier. A 16-inch rigid heddle loom is a little bit overkill for a skinny little band, but I figured out a few things to help make it easier. So this style of rigid heddle has these little stands that help keep the shed open so you don't have to hold it with your hand. So usually it's kind of the force of the warp that helps stabilize this so it doesn't flop all over. But with such a skinny band, it's not stable enough. I added these rubber bands and they're really, okay, it's not perfect. They still kind of fall off, but they have been certainly helpful in making it easier, even though I'm struggling right now. I swear it's making it easier. Okay, it's still even a little unsteady here, but without those rubber bands, it was just flopping all over the place. Hopefully this is enough of a kind of a demonstration just to show how those rubber bands are helping to stabilize that better. I guess we can show it by taking off the rubber bands, and that should illustrate it very nicely, right? So without the rubber bands, of course the down position is always more stable. Then, well, okay, without the bands, it just wants to flop over the place. I could hold it with my hand, but then I was having trouble tugging the weft enough to get it to cinch in enough to make the pattern turn out correctly. Doing this, I just was feeling like I needed at least 3 hands, if not 5. Long and short of it is the rubber bands are holding this still, so it's not flopping all over, so that I'm not like feeling frustrated and constantly managing a lot of things, and then that way I can actually concentrate on the pattern and remember what I'm doing instead of fighting with my tools. One of the other things that I have figured out while weaving this as a total band weaving newbie is that I probably really should have listened to the instruction to make a guide, what was it called? Let's look it up. Oh, okay. She calls it a bandwidth checker. So I really should have made a bandwidth checker. Anyways, I didn't do that. I'll show you when I have it all done. But at the very beginning, it took me a little while to figure out how to beat it correctly to get it to all cinch in. Since this is the first time I've ever done a warp-faced weaving. Normally, with the other things I'm weaving, where I'm trying to have a more balanced weave, I just want to very gently place my weft and just make sure that the edge of the weft is just at the edge of the warp thread, so you don't get a loop, but that it's not drawing in. So as with balance weaving, when I'm weaving towels or scarves or things that are not warped face, I don't want drawn. I want it to stay as wide. But I've discovered that the way to get a warp faced fabric is you have to get it to draw in so that the warp covers the weft. So I had to figure out that it's not just about beating down the weft really hard. It's also about tugging the weft over to get the draw in. So it took me a few picks in the beginning to figure that out. And then I had it figured out and was going along nicely. And then I put this aside for a couple of weeks while I was working on the embroidery and the other parts of the costume. And then when I came back, I thought I remembered what I was doing. And after multiple picks, I realized, oh no, I'm not tugging hard enough. This is too wide. So the moral of the story is, if I had made that bandwidth checker to begin with, I probably could have avoided that. Oh, the hubris of thinking, oh, I'm a total newbie and have never done this before, but I don't need to follow the directions of the experienced person who actually knows what they're doing and has good advice. And then after I realized that, well, I still didn't make a bandwidth checker. Because then I'm like, well, what if that makes it super consistent at the end, but it's still all wonky for more of half of it? Maybe we should just lean into the fact that this will be a little wonky as a beginner project. I've learned my lesson for the next time I try to band weave, that I will create a bandwidth checker next time. I think we're ready to advance again. I think we're going to come to the end of the paper. Always an exciting moment. Okay, there's the end of the paper. So I got just that much left of the warp. That is good news. Hopefully I'll be able to get this finished today, which would be awesome. Oh, another thing that I had to figure out, what tension that I want in my warp. So I'm used to, like, when I'm weaving towels or whatever, I usually have a fairly high tension, partly because when I'm weaving, especially like on my table / floor loom, I'm using a boat shuttle, so I want it a higher tension to help keep the shuttle from diving down to the floor. So when I started out, I was, had a pretty tight tension because that's what I was used to. And then I realized that it's much harder to get the drawing that you actually want for the warp face weaving. So I've had to learn to leave my tension looser. And that was also another thing that I forgot when I left it for a couple of weeks and came back, which was also part of the problem of why it was suddenly wider. And I had to remember that I needed to be looser to tug that weft in. So I'll give you an update when I get down to the end. I've advanced the warp as far as it's going to go. This is probably longer than it needs to be, and so I probably could just quit now, but somehow there's part of me like,
let's just keep weaving till I can't fit my shuttle in anymore.
I'm also kind of excited that this is the same weft I've been using the whole time, so I'm not even running out. Didn't have to add any additional weft, so I don't know. That feels exciting. Kind of silly and exciting. Let's see. I think we're going to try and get one more pattern repeat. I think that might be just possible. But it is getting a little bit tricky, especially on the down shed. It doesn't have enough space to really separate, so I'm just kind of holding it up with my fingers. I have to hold it up with my fingers in order to not catch any of the wrong threads, and also to be able to get the pattern, to pick up the correct pattern threads. Okay. Yeah, kind of silly to insist on doing this last pattern be a little bit wonky because, of course, this is just at the end and not getting a clean shed. So don't be like me. Don't do that. Hooray! It's done. It is time. I finished the end and did the little weaving end of the end thing that it showed me how to do in the book that I don't know how to explain. The important thing is we finished the weaving and secured the end of the weft so that it hopefully doesn't all fall apart. So now we get to the fun part of cutting it off the loom. Those first few picks, I had no idea what I was doing. And I realized that does not look right. And then I started yanking on the weft thread to get the drawing that we needed. And then we can see there's still size variation. Again, where I think that either the tension on the weft, I had it too tight so it wasn't drawing in enough, and or I wasn't tugging enough. So it definitely varies in width. And and then here I got bored of just the same patterns. I started alternating some of the patterns, and then there it got wider again because this is probably where I left off. And then I came back to it after a couple of weeks and had the tension on the weft too tight so it wasn't drawing in. And then I got better. And it's still, yeah, size variation. Oh, there was another. Let's see. Certainly some parts are better than others, but I suppose all in all, it's not too terrible for my first attempt at this type of weaving. Some of these are pretty loose on the back. That is probably not ideal to have some of those threads so loose. Not quite sure. I suppose if they're that loose, it probably means the tension was too loose. Oh well, things to learn, things to learn. So I finished off the ends. I decided just to braid the little fringe to keep it nice and neat. I thought about twisting the fringe, but I decided to test out the braid, and I don't know, I thought the braid looked cute. Okay, now that this is all done and the fringe is braided, I'm gonna go toss this in the dryer. Not in the dryer. I'm gonna go wash it in the washing machine with a color catcher to make sure that that red doesn't bleed onto the white.
That would be tragic.
And then that way it'll be all washed and dried and ready for Saturday. So excited!